Welcome back to Cheddar's Opening Bell. Well, presidential candidate Joe Biden telling donors that he's going to get rid of most of Trump's tax cuts, admitting to them, quote, "A lot of you may not like that," end quote. The former vice president is still leading the president by 9 percentage points on average in national polling. And joining us now to discuss is Nicole Goodkind, politics reporter for Fortune. Nicole, it's great to see you this morning. What does this mean for Biden's campaign that he might be raising taxes?
Yeah, I mean, I think he just fed the Trump campaign a great soundbite, right? That they'll be playing over and over again. Look, you said it yourself, Biden is ahead by leaps and bounds in all polling, but when you actually break down the polling, Americans do trust Trump more when it comes to the economy. And his campaign has been asking him to kind of play the economy and make that the base for his election. Here's the quote, right? This is what it is. Look at me. I'm Wall Street's friend. I'm good for the economy. And Joe Biden isn't. He wants to raise your taxes. Now, Biden himself has said that he would not raise taxes on anyone making less than $400,000 a year, but that's a lot harder to explain than to just play the soundbite over and over again.
Is this something that could be a deal breaker in the election, Nicole?
You know, I think in previous elections it may have been, but who knows what's going on with this election. Everything is different and up in the air. I think that we saw a really interesting earlier campaign with Biden against Bernie Sanders, where he had to move a little bit to the left, and he might be playing to that younger base. He just hired a bunch of younger staffers who worked with Obama. He's still raising a ton of money. He raised $2 million at that event where he said those words. I don't think this is the deal breaker we think it is. When you actually break down what he plans to do with the tax cuts too, it's a lot of corporate cuts. Or raises on corporate rates. It's not so much for middle class Americans. And you have to remember there was a lot of pushback around Trump's tax cuts, saying this didn't actually do anything for people. People didn't see increases in their paychecks. So there is some nuance to this. I also want to note that looking around, you know, this wasn't in Playbook this morning. It's not getting a ton of national play the way you'd think it was, and that might be because of what was happening on your previous segment, right? There's just so much going on that this might be something that kind of gets lost or shifted. But I do think that a lot of people, progressives on the left, have kind of paved the way for this. So this doesn't seem as shocking as it might have. And then one more point on this is that, you know, there are the deficit hawks out there, the kind of typical conservatives, traditional conservatives rather, who are really concerned about the rising deficit, and Joe Biden is playing to them as well here.
So Nicole, speaking about the virus, I mean, the shock level, right, is so much higher in some ways. It seems our threshold, or at least what we've been covering in the news, versus what would typically, you're right, I think, be a big headline, which would be Biden's comments on taxes there. But the virus, we do know that Dr. Anthony Fauci is going to be testifying today on Capitol Hill, along with the CDC director. What can we expect there, and will politics be at play?
Yeah, I think politics will absolutely be at play, especially since the CDC director will be there. There are three things in particular that I'm going to be looking for. And one is what he has to say about there being a rise in cases caused by more testing. And this is something that President Trump has kind of gone on and on about, and other people have, you know, contradicted him there. I want to see what Fauci himself has to say. There is certainly more testing going on, but is that what's actually adding to the rise in cases in these pivotal key states like Arizona and Florida and Texas? I have a feeling he may not think it is, and that will definitely put him at odds with the president. And then another thing that's kind of on the political side of things that I'm sure he'll be asked about is whether he's talked to Trump about holding these rallies, these quote unquote super spreader events where people have to sign release forms before they go in because the threat of catching COVID is so high, and you know they're being held in these states that are now really through the roof with their rates. So I want to see what he has to say about that, whether he contradicts the president on that, and what happens there. You know, the president's going to speak at a mega church that seats thousands without wearing a mask. So what's going on there? And then finally, what I'd really like to hear is not political, or it could be, but what's next? What's happening in the future? You know, he's expressed concerns about a vaccine actually being effective just because so many Americans might be reluctant to take it. Where are we on that? Do we have any drugs that might be, you know, in the pipeline? We're running low on the one drug that is actually considered good, you know, helpful to treatment. And I want to know what happened to hydroxychloroquine too. It's been a bust now, right? It's out there that it's a bust. How does he feel about that? And that could also get a little bit political just because the president has really backed it quite a bit.
Definitely, Nicole. We do know that the House passing a coronavirus relief bill, this one targeting homeowners and renters. What is this going to do, and do you expect it can move forward?
Yeah, so this is, I think, about $175 million in relief. $100 million goes to renters, 75 to homeowners, and then it also extends clauses that say you can't evict people. As the virus rate rises, this is really important. People are going to, businesses are shutting down. People are going to be out of work. They might not be able to pay their rent. So anti-eviction rules are important. This was all part of the last bill that was passed by the House and then kind of held up in Senate. Maxine Waters is heading this portion of it, and she's saying, look, this part is so important that we can't wait for Senate to act. They say they're probably going to do something in late July, and then there's going to be a lot of negotiations. She said, we have to get this through. Given what's been happening with the Senate, I don't see it actually passing. And I see this continuing to be kind of on a state-by-state basis. We had in New York, Governor Cuomo extended no eviction rules for a bit. I think that's what is going to end up happening.
And Nicole, markets certainly going to be paying attention to what Fed Chair Jerome Powell and Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin have to say at 12:30 p.m. Eastern time today. What are you watching for in those statements? And is there a targeted date that you expect a next fiscal stimulus package to come, perhaps in July?
Yeah, we've heard late July with McConnell. It's unclear. I think now that we see, and unfortunately it does play into politics, now that we see that the virus is affecting these really pivotal red states, we may see some movement. The Trump administration has actually advocated, even before this, for another fiscal package. It's good for them, right? They saw their numbers bump when people were getting these paychecks. But I think that there has been some holdup. We did see some movement on the part of McConnell, Mitch McConnell, who's Senate Majority Leader. Yesterday, I believe he tweeted out to wear a mask, which makes me think that maybe things are changing a little bit in his mind. But, I just don't see anything happening, unfortunately, until late July, so about a month from now.
All right, well, a lot of people waiting on that, Nicole. We are going to get that jobs report on Thursday, too. Nicole Goodkind, a politics reporter for Fortune. Nicole, thanks so much.